Uh, and I have another colleague of mine, Sahil, who also did a lot of work on FDA compliance, who will be joining. And he, I think, is here now. Hi, Sahil, can you hear us?
Hi,
Hi, Sahil.
Hi, Sahil.
hi, Amit.
Just to introduce, Sahil is also a very vibrant contributor, and he did his bachelor's from IIT Chennai, right? Sahil?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and he is currently working as a software engineer at Google in the Bangalore office, right, Sahil?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And just a little bit about me. I just finished my PhD in hydrology.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I'll be starting my postdoc position soon, next month at ETH Zurich. Okay. So I'll just go ahead. So I actually have watched a lot of your videos on YouTube on different TV channels and things, and I really enjoy a lot of them. One thing that I try to understand about regulatory compliance of pharma companies is compliance really depends on the scale of a company in terms of how large a company is, because if a company is large, they'll have a lot of different factories, and all of this results in a lot of different products that you're selling. So there are more chances of you missing something, or you basically not being able to comply with every single thing if your operations are much more complex in nature compared to a company which is much smaller. And that is one factor. So are there other factors which also contribute a lot to the compliance record of companies that investors can think more about?
Okay, now your first starting assumption that compliance is actually dependent on or directly proportional to the scale of the company. See, it is not like that in a pharma. Scale matters in compliance when you are in a kind of a, you are a listed company, so you have to comply to the shareholder requirements, or an insurance company where you have to have monitor their health insurance and blah blah blah. See, pharma compliance is actually has two dimensions. One is which territory are you working on, right? So if you are a fully focused US based company, your compliance requirements are totally different, and if you are on other territories, your compliance are totally different. For regulated markets, the overall compliance requirement, and regulated market actually means 5 territories, and let me be very clear to your group. The first is US, Canada, North America. Then you have UK, including EU, Australia, and South Africa. These are the 4 major territories, 5 major territories. They are called the regulated markets. Okay, so compliance here is actually defined as a promise given to the regulators. Okay, so even if you are a one molecule wonder, like as of now, let's say Hykel Limited, one molecule wonder, but operating in the United States or the regulated markets, your compliance doesn't depend on the scale. It depends on the day your company was set up and the day the company decided to do regulated business. The other part of the compliance is the continued commitment in terms of maintaining the commitment that you have done in your technical file. I'll give you one example. Suppose I'm a company X and I have said that, okay, I will make, let's say, paracetamol without using recovered solvent. In chemistry, you see when let's say when atorvastatin was launched, the cost of the API was, let's say, 100,000 rupees a kilo. With time, with knowledge in chemistry, it came down to now 25 to 30,000 rupees a kilo. You know why? Because a lot of research goes on using another reagents, another intermediates to make atorvastatin. There way the companies want to cost down the cost. For example, let's say I am an American company interested in doing business in the US, and I have a molecule called atorvastatin, and it uses n number of solvents. Let's say methanol as a final solvent, pure methanol. So there is a specification you have promised to the FDA that, look, whenever I will make atorvastatin for direct supplies to the United States or indirect supplies, means supplying to an Indian company or a European company which will supply tablets to the United States, I will use fresh methanol. Now, fresh methanol has, let's say, X rupees a liter. You can also make atorvastatin by making recovered methanol, right? Because see, solvent doesn't get used up in the reactions, right? You only use them as a media. So you can always do a solvent recovery, and that recovered methanol is also good to make atorvastatin. But even if you prove the data to the FDA that look, I have my recovered solvent, if I've used my recovered solvent and I've made atorvastatin, it is the same quality as the fresh solvent. So what is the problem? The problem is the promise that you gave them, right? Promise that even if the recovered solvent are going to be used, I am going to be using only fresh solvent for the American supplies. This is what is compliance. Please understand that 90% of API audit that US FDA or European people do, the audit time of 90% of the audit time gets wasted in this argument with the FDA. That look, sir, I have a better data using the recovered solvent. It doesn't matter. I am making the atorvastatin as pure as what I have written in my drug master file. But this is where FDA points out and tells you, look, same drug master file you have written in bold and italics that you will never use a recovered solvent. So what was preventing you in not amending your drug master file, informing the FDA, and we are not here to decimate you. We would have agreed on the data. But see, you would have informed us earlier because we are sitting 10,000 miles away from India. We have been giving you approval based on your promises and commitments. And if you don't follow that, we will be very hard on you. Very, very hard on you. That is why if you see number, as some of your colleagues have compiled the drug master 483s and the warning letter of API companies, most of it are related to the compliance of the commitment that you gave in the drug master file. See, drug master file for an API guy is like a bond you file with the FDA. No divergence. Another example, let's say I have an intermediate, and just for chemistry's sake, an ethylamine, which gives me X molecule or atorvastatin. Now you have a diethylamine also, which eventually also gives you atorvastatin, let's say. You can't start doing that only because it is a cheaper version and it is still giving you a same quality atorvastatin, right? So, because in the drug master file, you have written, that's my commitment that any API that will go for the US intended market or to the company which will manufacture that use it in the tablets or capsules will be from this intermediate, not the new knowledge that you have got now. If you have got a new knowledge, go back to the FDA, submit the commitment. They will ask you tons of data. If you're happy with it, they will allow you. So, compliance in API is, or in pharma, is basically with respect to the commitment or the promises that you have made in your technical file. So that was the API. Let me explain to you for the formulation. Okay. Now let's say you have given, when the FDA walked in at your factory, see, every company which files a ANDA always gets a pre-approval inspection. Every new company. Let's say I am Ajanta Pharma. I'm not a US FDA approved, let's say now. And I file an ANDA now. Before the FDA even takes up the ANDA for review, for technical review, the FDA teams comes to your site because you are the first mover, first applicant. Now let's say you have shown them a machine that, look, I'm going to file paracetamol at my Ajanta factory or X factory using a compression machine which has this following technology. It has a precision which can have no tablet out of the range in terms of weight and all that in 10 million tablets. That's a precision German machines work on. And you get approval. FDA, have fantastic facility, fantastic machines, no concerns, approved. And the day FDA goes and you start working on your Indian machines to increase the capacity, right? That is again a non-compliance. Because see, you have committed in your file that you will use this machine with this speed, with this ID, this technology bought from Germany or whatever it may be. No problem. If you want to go to an Indian machine, you could have filed your amendment to the ANDA, ask the FDA to review with respect to that. But this is where the starter of the Indian companies are getting problem. They spick and span their facility. They spick and span their automated machine when there is a pre-approval inspection. And they falter when the supplies keep going to US. And that's why they compromise on the compliance. So compliance has nothing to do with scale. But even if you have one molecule to this regulated market, your compliance becomes your promise.
So, if I understand you well, so if you come up with a process improvement in your chemistry to make a drug or to make the intermediate or an API, let's say, you really have to do a new DMF filing for an API player to tell that, okay, I have a new process. I think it's more efficient. Here's the data. If you approve me a new DMF, I can use it, but I cannot just do it myself and use the old DMF and my new process. So whenever there's a process improvement, I should really tell them upfront. And your point about capacity expansion. So let's say, for example, Ajanta, they are expanding very fast in the US right now. Let's say in a couple of years, they enter into roadblocks in terms of the number of tablets that the machines can throw out. So when they want to expand, is it okay for them to just buy the same machine from the same brand that they had mentioned in the ANDA application, or do they? So is that okay?
Okay. Now coming back to your API plant. Now see, whatever you are asking, it's not that FDA may not have comprehended it. I mean, people sitting at 7,000, 8,000 miles away from here must be knowing that this kind of problems will be faced. See, process industry, including pharma especially, the novelty of the business is that you keep challenging your own knowledge and improve on cost, improve on yield and all that. So please understand that, FDA auditors are not born auditors. They have also worked in industry. They have also gone through the process and they know that and believe. So, there are guidelines available at FDA. When you file a drug master file or an ANDA, there are guidance which says that, look, XYZ changes that if you want to do, it is called as a change being effected, CBE. You just have to inform the FDA, we are not going to trouble you for that. So you don't have to wait for your change to be done, for the FDA babus to review your file, get up in the Maryland office and then give you approval. By the time you lose the business. So there are changes covered in a document which very clearly says that these are the changes which are called CBE, change being effected. You just do it and inform us. That's it. The other is called a pre-approval supplement. Means for these kind of changes, you have to apply a pre-approval. You have to modify your drug master file as a supplement and wait for our approval. Now, so this is the guidance. Now, let me tell you, and with respect to the current lockdown and the COVID thing that is happening now. Now, see, one of the examples in one of the attributes in to file a, let's say, change being affected is that you just inform the agency that, look, your reactors or a vessel which you are using for manufacturing has gone bad, and I'm now buying a new reactor from, let's say, GMM Fodler, and since chemistry wise and technology wise they are like to like, it doesn't impact the quality of the product, and hence please approve us. So that comes as a CBE. FDA respects your knowledge. FDA respects that the guys who can make atorvastatin can also make a decision of what is likeness. So they, it's where the engineers come into role play, and the engineers just write that, okay, this reactor is glass line, dia is same, thermal capacity is same, no, the accessories is same. So go ahead, no requirement of FDA to come and inspect it. On the contrary, the second example is the following: that let's say during COVID, some of the companies did not used to get the intermediate from China, and I'm telling you, for example, for actually indirectly warning the Indian companies who have done this, and they will get caught. Okay, so I'm very bluntly telling you this example. So let's say during the euphoria of this Atmanirbhar and this COVID and China, this thing, you were getting some intermediates from China. That's part of your drug master file. That, look, XYZ intermediate, I'm buying from, let's say, Hibai Bioengineering from China. That goes to my next step of metronidazole, and my metronidazole API is manufactured in my Indian side. That's your commitment. Now, because you did not get that intermediate during that issue, you also have a capability to make your own intermediate, or you can always outsource it from another Indian company, tens of them are making it. And without informing the FDA, you start using the intermediate, because the final product that you're getting, metronidazole, is the same. So nobody can catch you anyway. But that's a self-assumed approval without informing the FDA, right? And this is where FDA will go very harsh. That's a disaster of a compliance. I mean, if you would have written a letter to FDA that, look, we are facing this kind of problem, we are into euphoria of this Atmanirbhar and all that. China has stopped supplies because of geopolitical reason. And please allow me to source intermediate from other company. I will ensure that my final API source does not remain the same. See, it's a lack of paperwork. When you do dishonest work, you don't want to do a lot of paperwork. If they would have done a paperwork, I can guarantee you that FDA would have responded in 24 hours. Go ahead. Please don't even ask from next time when you have this kind of problem. But this is the problem with Indian companies. We are not honest to ourselves. And when they work on a policy that when you don't look at the moon, moon disappears. Moon doesn't disappear. Moon and sun are always there. So I think you got it. There are examples which FDA has listed down in the guideline that you must please inform us in advance. The examples they have already listed that you did not bother us. Just go ahead and be it. And my feeling is, by looking at the companies, because I also interact with them as a customer, the customer of the API manufacturer who are currently into the US DMF business must have compromised on this parameter, and you'll get this music opening up by the FDA when the inspection starts in India.
That's a very useful point. I never really thought about it in that details. About inspections, do you know if FDA is doing virtual inspections now, or did they just stop it and they are waiting for everything to resume so that they can do the physical inspections?
They have published a draft guidance for carrying out a virtual inspection, which has still not been commented upon by the industry. So rather than to get into and enforce that, they've already started the local inspection, which they can do it in America. That is why Lupin Somerset plant, Arbindo, Sun Pharma's plant are getting audited. Regarding the virtual inspection, the guideline still has not been finalized. However, without that guideline being finalized by the FDA also, there are some inspections, virtual inspection actually already started for companies which have a better compliance history. For example, let's say, I'll give you an example. As I told you that if you are a new filer in the drug master file, right, you need to be inspected by the FDA. But once your plant gets approved, you can file a number of drug master file from that facility till 2 years or 3 years till you do something bad or ugly. Now, cases in Indian company where the companies have the plant, they have filed a DMF, that unit has already got a US FDA approval, but the company has already created another block or another unit for, let's say, new APIs. Ideally, by law, FDA should come and inspect that block. But because your compliance history is better, FDA may audit or approve your drug master file for ANDA without even coming to a factory. And this is where Newland comes into picture. And that's where it's always pays you in long term with this kind of emergency where to have your compliance history very good. And it's logical. If you have a good credit rating, you get a loan, right? You get that's how it happens. So let's say if Newland has a credit history where they have never got a data integrity issue, and they write to the FDA that, look, we have created a new block for X peptides or low potent molecules, and my DMF is not getting reviewed because FDA has stopped the inspection. So FDA may waive off the physical inspection of that plant, and that must be happening, and it's already happening.
This brings an important point to my mind. Like, we have always been thinking, like, as an outside investor, how can we assess like the compliance culture within a company? For example, if I had looked at Lupin, let's say in 2013 or 2014, they were expanding very quickly, and the compliance record was not bad. And it really changed in like 2017, 18, 19 when they started getting like all the OAIs and the warning letters are still not lifted. For example, if I look at smaller companies right now, like in Alembic, they always say that they do a lot of virtual inspections. Not virtual, but like mock FDA inspections. And they say that we try to be as nimble as we can because we do a lot of these mock inspections to improve our process. If I listen to an Ajanta management, they always say that whenever there's a warning letter or anything issued against any pharma company in the world, we read it by like very well, and then we try to incorporate it within our own processes. So this is what we hear, like as an investor from these companies. How much of this should we take at face value?
Okay. Now, you gave the example of Alembic because you probably heard from them. If you go to any company in Hyderabad or Ahmedabad or a Gujarat, everybody will tell you the same thing. I mean, it's not I mean, everybody to please the investor tell you that we do a lot of mock audit, blah, blah, blah. See, let me tell you one thing. And I've been writing about it this. The compliance sincerity, as coming back to your first question, first of all, is not related to scale. Okay. So the more you grow in scale doesn't mean that your compliance is very important and blah, blah. It also molecules of 1 molecule and 100 molecules. And let me tell you in mathematical term, the distance between the chairman of the company and the head of quality, whether it's a corporate quality or a global quality or a site quality, the distance between that is inversely proportional to compliance. Very clear. So if you hear Laurus Laboratory doing good because the chairman listens to the quality guy, as of now also, Dr. Chhawa is the person who first talks to his quality guy rather than the R&D guy or the technology guy. No, that culture has to be built in the company. And the more that the moment you start going bigger, and you know, I mean, I'm talking from I'm fortunate enough to work with Dr. late Parvinder Singh of Ranbaxy. So the more you grow bigger, what happens is the hierarchy gets built in. So you have a manager QA or a senior manager QA, AGM QA, DGM QA, general manager QA, associate vice president, president, member of the board, and all that. The guy who is handling the site quality has to directly report to the chairman of the company. Any company which does not follow this practice, irrespective of whether the global quality head is a member of the board or global quality head is the next to reporting to chairman, it doesn't help. The site quality which is supplying to US or the regulated market, the chairman must have his eyes and ears to that guy. The day it gets diluted, the day company starts falling in compliance. Let me tell you this golden rule of X. So the best way to evaluate a company in terms of their compliance sincerity is ask them a question. Whom does the site QA head reports to? Does he have access to the chairman at night? Or the chairman is international call to him or a local call to him? I mean, you have examples. I mean, I don't want to name the companies, but you have examples where things have gone from bad to worse because the quality is going from farther to the chairman's eyes and ears. So compliance, and for that matter, please understand that, unfortunate part is, and I'm a quality regulatory guy, unfortunate part is that anything that gets caught or anything that you do bad in a plant, the final hammer goes to the quality guy, because these are the guys who face the inspection. If you go to a typical pharma company, the head of quality actually faces the inspection. So no, when the inspection doesn't go bad, and if he starts hiding things which other his peers have not done right, so finally the whole responsibility comes to the head of quality. So rather than waiting for that particular day at that particular situation, the decision makers in the company, the leadership, must ensure that maybe on a hierarchy basis or a functionality basis, the site QA is heading to a quality head in US or a Europe, but he must have also access to the chairman's for sure. Otherwise, you will see a lot of compromise on compliance.
So if I just make a tongue-in-cheek comment, does it mean like Nilesh Gupta attending the inspections now? Does it imply that Lupin's forward compliance will be much better? That he's actually...
Nilesh Gupta never sits in the inspection. Sorry.
Like in the last couple of interviews that he has given, he said that he's coming.
No, see, I'm telling you how an inspection happens. You are free to call anybody in an inspection. USFDA doesn't matter if it's a Nilesh Gupta or a Raman Bhai Patel in QA. You can call anybody to face an inspection. But generally, how the inspections happen is that in the opening meeting, the chairman also comes. Okay, just to say hello to the inspector, and just tell about his quality, this thing, and and he's called if the inspections are very bad or inspections are very good, both ways. He likes to join the closing meeting. Otherwise, during the inspection, the MDs and see, please understand that FDA wants, or any regulators want to evaluate the capability of the operation guy, the guy who is doing that operation. Okay, he is not going to listen to Nilesh Gupta's para for filing or ANDA and revenue that will come. FDA is not interested in that. So all leadership in Indian pharma are very aware of how inspections are taken place, and they only sit in the inspection either in the closeout or in the opening meeting, or probably during lunch when they share their pleasantries and talk about Indian monsoons.
Okay, thanks for the distinction. We found this interesting pattern in like data over the last decade, the number of warning letters, the number of OAIs and VAIs. A couple of companies really stood out. One was Aurobindo. It has the highest VAI in the last decade. It has got around 31 like VAIs, 4 OAIs on only one warning letter. Why do they get so many VAIs? And like, why does it? So when I'm seeing at other companies which got, let's say, 4 warning letters in the last decade, companies like, let's say, a Lupin or a Cadila, why does Aurobindo have this very weird track record of having such high number of VAIs and such few warning letters?
Weird will be a wrong word to use for an enterprise which is one of the third biggest generic company in the country in the world. What I'm saying is that look, if you look from a statistics point of view, the number of VAIs of Aurobindo probably or Sun Pharma, if you see lately, has increased because now they have entered into injectables, both APIs and formulations. So Aurobindo has a double barrel problem of handling the injectable APIs as well as the formulation. And as you must have heard, hearing me on my various media appearances, that I am very, very concerned about sterile manufacturing in India, injectable, because of the poor aseptic practices. So, it is logical that, it will take some more time for Indian big pharma to get a clean sheet in inspection because VI is not a clean sheet, as you know. NAI is a clean sheet, OI is a problem, VI is like intermediate. So the moment Aurobindo started finding more of sterile APIs and sterile products, then the frequency of their VI is more because it's built into the nature. If you're trying to grab bigger business, bigger specialty injectable business, there's a cost to that, and that cost to price is the end time increase in your compliance commitments, right? So it will happen with time. You will see that, and moreover, specific to Aurobindo, I can tell you that they have like 9, 11, 12 units which are catering to American business or a regulated business. So naturally they get a lot of inspections also. So rather than calculating the number, I would expect you to calculate the per capita number rather than the number.
We also did this like ANDA per revenue, warning letters, or OAIs per revenue. And how much does it? We did like a lot of weird mathematical calculations.
That doesn't make sense because I tell you also, like see, look at Hykel, one of the best client company in India in terms of API, but relying on only one molecule called mostly on gabapentin. Now let's say, and it has been a clean sheet US FDA inspection till today, a number of inspections. Now if they falter in gabapentin, let's say they should not, I pray God that, but let's say they falter in the gabapentin commitment in the drug master file and they get a VAI or something. Now that's the company's over. You have only one molecule and only one site which is US FDA approved. So bigger companies naturally to de-risk have a lot of other modules, lot of plants to because they have de-risked their compliance risk, and numbers should not bother you actually as long as the quality of audit should bother you. So even if you get a 1483, I've been giving an example. Let's say, and for your viewers' benefit, let me tell you that let's say today a plant inspection is going on and you end up with 20 observations. Generally the sheet goes wrong. They say, oh, they've got 5 483s or 7 observations. Oh, this will definitely be a problem. Let's say a company is audited and after an audit, they get about a 20 observation. And observations ranges from poor gowning or a poor practice following, poor training program, or, the employees not writing, following the SOPs and all that. These are minor observations. Unfortunately, FDA does not capture the observations as critical, major, and minor. But these are observations which, in fact, as a quality assurance, I tell you that I feel a problem when a company comes to this market and says that, look, we had a 7-day inspection and we got 0483. I doubt that company. As simple as that. Because see, I know that if you work the way you are working and with a commitment, there will be observations. A working body needs to have cough and cold. Dead bodies don't capture cold, right? So if you say that, okay, you have no cough and cold for last 3 years and your health is so good, doctor is not going to believe you. So same way, if a company goes and tom-toms to the exchanges and say, look, 5 days of inspection, 2 inspectors from US FDA, unannounced, and we got 0483, that's the company I will not prefer to invest. That's the company I will not, because see, this means they have not understood the whole game. The game is the following. No inspection in the world is all comprehensive. They cannot do your entire data review, entire practices review in 3 days or 4 days of inspection, right? So because FDA has not looked into some of the area and have not criticized you, doesn't mean you on your hand on your heart know where you stand. So that's why if you see companies like Lupin, for that matter, Natco or Newland, at least 3 companies I can identify, they never tom the story of, oh, they got a 0483. They said inspection happened, we will respond to the FDA. That's it. Now this is a culture has become, because the investors don't take it like the numbers seriously, took the numbers seriously. Oh, they've got 10 observations. So now people have started writing. We have got 483s, but nothing is related to data integrity. No, see, we ourselves are deciding the rule. We should not do that actually. The best way is just inform that your FDA inspection has started. Inform when it has finished. Let the FDA do its work. So you have companies here where the FDA inspection has not even completed and they go to the street at 3:30 and say, look, FDA inspection is over. So no, that doesn't look good, because in the days of internet, the FDA also will come to know this kind of thing you are doing. Because see, FDA is aware that 40% of Indian companies, especially in APIs, are filing drug master file in India only for the sake of US FDA inspection. They don't want to do any serious business in US, neither they do want to supply API to their NDA because of the commitment I explained to you. They want to use the FDA name to get an automatic approval from Brazil, South Africa, Canada kind of thing. Because once you get a US FDA approval stamp of your site, 130 regulators of the country don't come to your site. Because they know that those countries know that this approval has come after a lot of commitment. But the point is that that's what not the FDA approval was sought for. So they get the FDA approval and they do all the hanky-pankies that they want to do and be profitable and shame the big pharma which is doing compliant work anyway.
Okay.
That's another problem.
I see. Your first point about sterile and non-sterile products. So I see like a lot of like Indian big pharma is trying to move up in the value chain. So companies like Cipla and Lupin are trying to go into inhalers. Companies like Aurobindo are trying to get into injectables. Sun is also trying to make a specialty pipeline instead of just generics. So one question about sterile practices: is it okay for a company to actually have the same facility which manufactures both sterile and non-sterile products?
Okay, so answering with respect to the investor approach that you people have taken in this call, see, non-sterile is something which you take from your mouth, inhale, or use as a patch. These are non-sterile materials. Okay, so they are low-risk manufacturing products. Sterile is something that directly goes to your venous system or intramuscular. A subcutaneous injection also is an injectable product. Intramuscular is injectable product. So what you take from mouth or take as a patch or as a respiratory. So that is why, Lupin comes out as a very low risk company coming forward, because they were more focused on respiratory pipelines and oral specialty rather than injectable. Now, see, look, what happens is, US FDA comes to your factory. Factory is registered as a plot number, right? And that's called a FEI number, Facility Establishment Inspection Number. Now, that happened at Sun Pharma. Let's say Sun Pharma Halol facilities, FEI number has that. Now, Sun Pharma was doing very good in terms of oral supplies there. With time, Sun Pharma got into injectable, and it has already had an old injectable plant. They upgraded it, and they invited the FDA to inspect. Now, because the facility was same, and because they got a little problem in their injectable unit, the whole site got rejected by the FDA. Right? So that's the problem now Silpa Medicare is facing. Silpa Medicare has a very good oral plant. It has a very good good last two FDA inspection as well for the oral. But this time the inspection was for both oral and inspection sterile. And because the sterile was not up to the mark, the whole site as a FEI number has got warning letter now. So it's a double pain for Silpa. Now big pharma, what they have done is they have decongested this risk, de-risk this. So Lupin has an injectable facility which is in Nagpur. So it is only injectable. Okay, or even if they will with time make another block of oral product in Nagpur because they have land, they will have a two different FEI number. So FDA when will come to inspect the injection plant will only inspect the injection plant, not the oral plant, right? So big pharma, and since the facility registration has now a fee, that's why it is not cup of a small mid pharma to afford that. They are still pumping in more blocks and more variety of molecules in the same facility. And that is where they are at a very big risk, very, very big risk.
So, and do you, I have heard like you in the past also talking about injectables and how India might not be at a competitive advantage to actually make injectables. And I see this with the commentary of a lot of companies like Glenmark moving like their injection facility to Mundro, Lupin trying to do it in New Jersey. Is there something which can happen like instead of sourcing it from India, people start doing injectables from US itself? Is the cost differential big enough?
So, see, unfortunately, the two biggest good parameters as a human being born in India that gave a successful generic story to India is running against us in terms of injectable. And that two parameter is our hygiene, and we are in a hurry. We want to produce more than what we can, in 8.5 hours time. Sterile, you don't have to be in a hurry. The moment you are in a hurry, you are creating more bacteria. You have to work a very silent atmosphere, very slow atmosphere. If you see a video of an injectable plant, you'll see people moving like a robot. But we are in a hurry. We have to leave 5:30 to go to catch a bus from Halol to Baroda. So we are in a hurry. Now the hurry, which actually gave us a lot of turnover, a lot of market in terms of generic medicine with respect to oral, is actually against now working for injectable. India's current operators, including me and you, now you are in a beard now. See, so you are not fit for working in an injectable plant. As simple as that. With so big a beard, you can't be working as an operator or a filler or a staff in an injectable plant. So that's a no-no. So, we have to improve our hygiene practices, and we also have to pause. We don't need to be in a hurry, because that's where we are actually spoiling our injectable final product. And this is where big pharma, like as you said, Lupin or Venkat Patel sir, or Cadila Healthcare, or for that matter, Arvindo now also realized that it's getting difficult to comply to hygiene and injectable aseptic practices level when you have Indian operators. So probably they are trying to de-risk and go to the injectable. Because these, like it or not, they have a better hygiene habits. There's no doubt about it.
So what? So we talked about sterile, non-sterile. What's your opinion about like biological molecules? What are the type of aseptic requirements in biosimilars and biological molecules?
Okay. So on the biologics, now let me couple the entire theory or entire guidelines that I discussed with you in terms of API and formulation and the aseptic practices. Now, as I told you that, changing a source of the intermediate API for API manufacturing also is a commitment to the FDA, right? So, when you source a different intermediate which is not part of your drug master file, you need to inform the FDA, and that's a very time-taking process. Similarly, for formulation guys like A&D holders, if I have let's say I have an API source of metronidazole from Unichem, and for some reason, let's say Unichem is not able to supply or has some regulatory issues, so I want to shift to another metronidazole from China or RT drugs, let's say. Now that also is a problem, because that also the A&D holder have to inform the FDA. You can't change the API source without informing the FDA on, and that's a 6 to 9 months approval process. But it is still possible. So when Lupin was making Pro Air, it actually started Pro Air with taking albuterol from Newland. But when Lupin got a CRL, it used its time to make its own API and include that in the source. So that gives them 30% more better benefit in the Pro Air product. So although changing in the API source is time taking, but it is not impossible, right? You can still buy a like-to-like source and use your NDA so that you don't lose your market. As special cases like just now you saw the Glumetza recall, metformin. So you had an NDMA impurity on the API. Now they have changed the source. FDA has allowed them to change the source, and now you don't have that genotoxic impurity. Now this is a biggest pain point for biosimilars. 95% of biosimilar products are injectable. So you have your aseptic practices, poor hygiene habits hanging on your head. And second is that biosimilars are approved as a API, not as a final product. It's actually the API which is biosimilar. Formulation of that is simple filling. It's just fill in the injectable vial. So suppose any changes happen in the previous stage, or your biosimilar API company gets into a problem, then your whole product gets into a problem, because there's no alternative scheme to include a new biosimilar source in your biotech product. I'm telling you, just for example, let's say insulin. You have an insulin formulation in US. So you have an insulin crystal API site. Now, if insulin API crystal site gets into a problem or has a supply issue, you have no option available to buy insulin from somebody else, right? It is your insulin and you just got the approval. So if biosimilar people get into this change in API source, active source, or the API supply issue, then the whole formulation has a supply issue. That's a bigger, tougher scheme than compared to generic medicine, where one source, if they have got a USFDA issue or a warning letter, you can change the source, right? So you have an RT drugs ready, or you have two sources in that. In biosimilar, you can't have two API source and one biotech product. Biosimilar is a product at the API stage itself, right? Yeah. So if you want to change the source, you have to go to the same story of doing the clinical trial and all that nonsense again. So it is more important for people who are into biosimilars to ensure that they have no log jam in the supply, and the compliance in the API plant is far better than their own plant.
So basically, they have to be much more careful, and they cannot get away with it because they have to do all the clinical trials again, which is like 50 to 60 million, I guess, for each.
Yes, because see, now it is reduced. But what I'm saying is that, let's say I am an atorvastatin tablet supplier. Let's say I'm Sun Pharma. So I have atorvastatin API, which is my own API. My plant got into some problem. So I have an option to buy from Hetero or a Loras or XYZ. My atorvastatin tablet continues to remain in supply but there will be only 6 month disruption. But in a biosimilar, as I give you example, so if you are in erythropoietin and you have erythropoietin injectable vial in US getting sold, but your erythropoietin API entity site has a problem, then you are over, because that entity cannot be changed. You cannot have a different erythropoietin from different source. Every biosimilar is a new molecule as per FDA's current guideline. So you have to go through the same process again, and that devastates the company.
One more question, which is not related to compliance, but just I want to improve my understanding of biosimilar adoption in the US. What we have seen so far is FDA has not given interoperability. So basically, you need to have a connect with the doctors itself, that they have to prescribe your biosimilar molecule, and it cannot be done by the chemist. Do you think, maybe it's too much of speculation, but why is this the case?
No, it is not up to that doctor level and all that. So please understand that biosimilars being the profile that they have, and they basically mostly for the chronic disease treatments, they see it is all driven by the approval that you have got from the insurance company, right? So it's a play out more between the prescription and the insurance company's acceptance of the prescription rather than doctors. I mean, doctors anyway have to play a role. So this is where the companies focus more on the insurance company in terms of reimbursing the increased cost of biosimilar, and that is why the big pharma, the gap of marketing muscle between a generic company like, let's say, Pfizer to a generic Indian company, the gap is less now, because FDA is convinced that all generic is as good as the innovator and all. But the gap between the marketing strength of big pharma in biosimilar compared to any so-called generic biosimilar that we are coming is huge. I mean, nobody knows your company. I mean, doctor doesn't know what is Biocon. Please understand that. So Biocon has no choice than to tie up with Mylans or Pfizer or the BMS of the world. I mean, if you tell a doctor that, look, this is a drug that is coming from Biocon, which is an Indian company, forget it. They are not going to write a prescription. I'll just give you an example. I mean, you just give it to the the quality and probably the marketing strength of Sun Pharma that they're able to scale up their branded this Illumia business. Otherwise, let's say today a generic company in India has a pack written atorvastatin, right? And no, you have a code number or manufactured at your site, blah blah blah. Tomorrow I decide to file my Indian atorvastatin brand, let's say Ator, in US. Not a single prescription will be written. Who knows Indian company? I mean, they are big pharma sitting for last 100 years there. I know the doctors are no, they are, but they write generic because by insurance companies they are forced to write that. That has not reached to a level where they're at a biosimilar stage. They still take life at premium for biosimilar prescriptions, right? So they cannot just write blindly biosimilar generics.
Makes a lot of sense. One question which we always wonder about, like what are the, so whenever we think about anything, we try to assess the base rates. What are the base? So if there's an Indian generic company which has been in operation for a couple of decades, so in a decade, how much warning letter should it get just because cost of business? What are the base rates of having an issue, or does that thing not exist?
No. As long as Heikel has been operating more than a decade now, never got a warning letter. Newland has been operating for more than 20 years now, no warning letter. No, you see, it depends on, that's what I'm telling you, it depends on how the leadership, including the chairman, wants this company. If he is interested in a shortcut success and being the darling of the stock market, all the best to him. But there are companies who understand that this is not going to help for long. This is going to decimate you. So, number of years of operation has nothing to do with warning letters.
Thanks for that clarification. And one thing which I actually learned from you was like, what is the role of contract workers in an Indian pharma company? Like how much of the employee base in a pharma factory actually are contract workers versus like company employees?
The answer to this question is, ask Mr. Modi whether we are a socialist country or a communist country. So if the answer comes from him, then it is very easy to answer. See, thankfully, you must have heard in this lockdown that the government has passed a labor law where you can hire and fire people up to 300 people employed in the factory. Right? The problem is that, it is not that Indian pharma or any Indian food company or nutraceutical company employs contract workers to cut costs. If you ask me, you actually, because of the minimum wages law, you pay more to the contract workers than to the permanent employees. The problem is the following, that this unorganized labor, they make union, and the union, the way union operates in India, they trouble you when they find you in problem. Like, how does it look when a USFD inspector comes up and you have 5 people raising red flag at the entrance with the Communist Party of India written over it. So, they are more of a nuisance, because, and that's why they are not taken on roll. Because more workers, if you take more workers, unorganized kind of workers on the roles, they create huge regulatory compliance and unrest kind of problem in Indian manufacturing sector. So that's why to bypass them, people are taken on contract, because you can always ask them to go on leave for after 180 days of the law. But now I don't think with the passing of this law, with 300 workers working on a unit, you can hire fire without a labor law getting applied to the company. I think this will improve. So we will, and my sincere request to all pharma companies, including owners, whoever include, and at least the injectable part, is that never ever employ a contract people. Make them feel part of the company. You spend on them on the training, because see, how can you spend on training and hygiene on somebody whom you don't know will come tomorrow to your factory? Tomorrow he gets 10 rupees more, he'll go to a atta factory or a banana factory. So, and since there will be a discontinuity in training them, a set of people for your products, it challenges you with respect to compliance, because every time an organization doesn't have a time and money to train 150 new set of people every 3 months. It's a lot of waste of time and loss of money for the company. So blame it more to the government and the policies that we have, rather than the owners of the company. But then I see that we are moving towards more own employees than contract employees.
That makes a lot of sense. Maybe Sahil had a very interesting question for you about like your firm Prosphora. Sahil, do you want to ask that question?
Sorry, I forgot which question it was because there were a few. It might
It
just make
is.
sense for you to. Okay.
Oh, sure. Like, what is the value proposition of companies like Prosphora?
Okay, so for that I have to rerun my tape of my career path to you first. See, I passed out from IIT Delhi, and thankfully was not jobless, so I had an option. I was picked up by Torrent in the campus interview, and I joined Torrent in 1995. Uh, Worked very nicely, got a lot of good exposure in what has come back to India after 22 years is on a fermentation plant. So I was like, we were setting up the India's biggest fermentation plant in a place called Gujarat, Baroda. And from there I moved to Sun Pharma. Thankfully, Dilip Bhai, I was under Dilip Bhai, Dilip Sanghvi. And I then moved to Ranbaxy, then worked Heikel, and then worked hard. Then became the head of regulatory and compliance for Alchem, and then the last was Copra. Now you see, I was always throughout a quality and regulatory person. So when you are working in a quality or regulatory department of the company, you always know the company's future and the company's plan a decade ahead. That's how it happens, because you are only working on off-patent product, patent information, regulatory filing timelines. So that was very exciting career path for me, because something which thankfully on salaried salaries company employee, you are getting knowledge which a lot of other peers do not have. But again, in this journey, I realized that if you do a lot of common sense and do honest work, there's a lot of scope for more and more Indian companies to get US FDA or a UK MHRA or a regulatory approval. Because as I told you, that do what you document what you do. If this is the line, if you type on the entrance of your company in pharma, you will never have a US FDA. And if at that time only I thought that, look, if I have the experience now and I want Indian pharma to, because see, call it patriotism or call it xenophobia, I always want that the entire manufacturing of generic other than the US should come to India. India has such a potential. We have huge brain, huge capability. Our R&D scientists can fortunately copy anything in the world. Let me tell you, if they don't get discovered, they can copy anything in the world. That's very clear. And copy it at 1/100th of the price that you find in the market. What happened is I came with a mission that, okay, can I be hand-holding tier 3 and tier 4 pharma companies which have huge infrastructure, huge number of IP in terms of their ROW market like Nigeria or Sri Lanka or Vietnam, but absolutely no knowledge to get into regulated market, right? So I thankfully went to 2 companies. One was is an unlisted company called Centaur. I met the honorable chairman, and I told him that, look, can you please, at least without, and believe me, we have not charged anything, and I personally didn't charge anything for these services. I just asked him, sir, can you give me a chance where I steer up and guide and train your people to get your USFD approvals without any fee, but I will get you at the time which Ranbaxy or a Cadila or a Sun Pharmas of the world took. They got in their 10 or 11 year of life cycle. So if Ranbaxy was set up in 1980s, they got their first USFD in 90s. So knowledge is a novelty. If you have a knowledge and USFD is allowing you to express your knowledge with honesty and are ready to give you approval. And at that time, fortunately, there was no inspection fee, no JADUFA fee. So he thankfully agreed, and we got his USFD approval for his Pune site, again without observations, in the fastest ever time. So that gave me the confidence of setting up a consultancy company, wherein my business model was very clear that I will only work with tier 3 and tier 4 pharma company who want to get into regulated market. And believe me, and this is very important for you guys to know, that look, whatever numbers that you see when people commit, oh, I've got this ANDA approval is a 120 million US dollar business for X years for US. None of the figure has ever been met. Can you believe that? Look, when an analyst tells you that, okay, Cadila gets a approval for atorvastatin, $80 million projected business, they have never met that figure. The reason is you people don't look at the non-listed entities. There are non-listed entities which are working also the same game, doing at a much cheaper price than the big pharma. An example is your Laurus laboratory before it got listed. It was doing the same ANDA work, same API work, and all that. Because the agency has nothing to do with whether you are listed or unlisted, right? If you are giving a good job, you're doing it a supply at a cheaper price to the American people. The insurance budget goes down, so they'll be happy to approve more and more of you. So, and thankfully, in last 5 years now, I've got about 26, 20, 30 approvals for people, various approvals like US FDA, including API, biocenters, clinical center, and all that. And that's working for me. But at the same time, to answer your question, that this is now has become an asset for me. That the relations that I have now made with these unlisted entities or some listed entities as well, I have access to manufacturing and supplies to these markets to any customer, a capacity which is more than any big pharma has standalone, right? So if Mylan CEO talks to me and says that I need a supply commitment for 10 billion tablets, probably I'll be the first person to be reached because I have access to capacity at US FDA approved facility where I can get him manufactured. Compared to the largest capacity that Granules India has probably for a 14 billion or 15 billion type of plant. So this is how it operates, and I have to do something for my living. So I'm doing that.
Okay. That's actually super nice to know. That I think this is something which is not captured in financial statements, like intangible assets.
Yeah. No, just once you mentioned that intangible assets, let's say, and you must have seen Mr. Sajal Kapoor and all that on the net, social media, talking about CDMO opportunity and all that. Now, see, CDMO opportunity is a fantastic opportunity, right? And the novelty of this has come from basically from US. See, if I am United States of America and I'm a US FDA guy, my plant, let's say Amit Rajan's plant, approved by US FDA and supplying atorvastatin, will fetch the same value which Dr. Reddy's US FDA plant will fetch. So, big pharma cannot go and take a high moral ground that, look, I am approved for 7 times by FDA. We have a path-breaking compliance history, so that's why my tablets are costlier. No. As long as any Tom, Dick, and Harry's plant is US FDA approved, it doesn't matter to the distributors of United States why you should charge more because you are Sun Pharma or a DRL or Arvind, right? So CDMO business is what comes to picture here. So let's say if you have a Suven Pharmaceutical or a Laurus Laboratory or a Syngene, for that matter, Syngene is wrong example. So they're only looking for CDMO opportunity. My plant is approved. Now tell me how much billion tablets you need from my plant. Now doing this business, the customer in US gets a cheaper product than what they would get from Sun Pharma or a Cadila or a DRL. That's why CDMO business in India is the biggest threat to Indian pharma.
So basically, instead of Pfizer making a capacity in India to source it for cheaper, they can just outsource this work so that this also becomes like a variable kind of a cost for the innovators. Yeah, that's a very interesting business. And also, like some of these CDMOs, like some companies like Syngene and Suven, they make really high margins. Like they make like 35%.
So they make margins because they are CDMO. Sorry, I gave the example which was actually for CMO only. Only CMO. I have not played any role of development. You just gave me your technology and asked me to copy and manufacture at my plant. Simple. That's a CMO business. The example that you are giving is CDMO, where you also develop the product for Pfizer, you also develop the product for Bishop and also get a supply agreement. So that's called a CDMO.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's also true. That's why you have the higher margins, like when you actually do drug development, because that is like the higher part of the value chain. No, that's also. I think I've also listened to like the investive conclave, like the long form interview of Mr. Sajid Kapoor. That was also very good to know, like where different players are, and I really think it's quite interesting that. Yeah, like the big companies can be disrupted not by other countries, but within the same country by more efficient players who might not have the same cost structure. I guess the cost structure for a listed company would always be higher because there are other
Very nice. I'll
stakeholders
give you
as
an
well.
example. 3 years back, let's say Teva used to come to Cipla. These all big pharma, please understand that whatever Syngene or a Laurus or in formulation at least are doing today, the big pharma of India have already done and dusted thing in 10 years back. So it's not that Cipla has not done a CMO work for Teva, or Sun Pharma has not done for Pfizer, or Arvindo has not done for Bristol Myers Squibb. Okay, they've already done that, but now their cost of people is not justifying that. Plus, if they do that, they will be killing their own market in US because they are also in the same game now, right? So I'll just give you an example, and that's where I feel I take little pride in doing this, although unfortunately probably reduction in the GDP business of India. I'll give an example. Let's say earlier there was Ranbaxy, and it used to make as a CMO some drugs for Eli Lilly. A basic rule of X for the charges was that whether all cost for the APIs, change parts and the packing material and all that was given by, let's say, Bristol Myers Squibb. Ranbaxy was to only utilize its US FDA capacity to produce it in the drug form. The rule of X was that every 1,000 tablet produced by Ranbaxy facility, they used to charge $20. Whether it was paracetamol or atorvastatin, because machine doesn't know I'm making paracetamol, I'm making atorvastatin. Machine knows I'm making tablets, right? So the rule of X 10 years before was you get 1,000 unit out of my machine and I'll charge you $20. Material cost and all that has to be paid by you separately anyway, right? Now salute it to the Indian manufacturing capabilities, the capacities that are available now. For US, it has come down to $6 now. Can you believe that? So a Subain Pharma, which decides to only do a CMO, not even a CDMO, and set up a 10 billion capacity and gets fully utilized, will make more money than somebody who does a CDMO and does it in India.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting. If you just work with a big pharma, you're probably making better returns right now. What are the kind of risks that you can envisage to that? Because at the end of the day, you're not your true master in that sense.
Risk is very clear. Risk is very clear that once you get rejected by a GMP inspection by any regulator, then naturally this big pharma contract will move away from you, right? Otherwise, these guys have zero risk. So as long as you maintain your compliance, and that is why you see, and a very interesting question. Now you see, you must have you listed down Aurobindo or a Sun, how much warning letter or OI. You list down a company called Piramal, which is not a listed entity, at least in pharma, but has never got a EI, never got a OI. You know why? Because they don't need to, so-called in inverted comma, manipulate their data to save their filings. Because Piramal has been a contract manufacturer throughout in their life. A contract manufacturer, if it reports failure to the FDA during the inspection, is awarded more by the FDA rather than criticized. Because you are a contract manufacturer, you are actually acting as an ambassador to US FDA. They are not here, you are here. So they don't mind if my tablet fails in, let's say, a thickness or a purity. They don't mind rejecting the whole batch and let Pfizer foot the bill for it. If had it been your own product, you will never do that. That's where we compromise on our integrity. So that's why if you see Piramal Healthcare, they will never ever have an FDA issue because they have nothing to hide. Whatever they want to hide, they have to hide to the contract giver, and that's why they enjoy their life. But point is, when I'm a company where my one batch cost is 10 crore rupees. Let's say Tamsulosin sustained release capsules, and the manufacturing guy says that one of the capsule is found not having the capsule. So I have a choice not to report this because all other capsules are anyway good. But Piramal will report it. No, I found a capsule without this, so entire batch is rejected. So that's how risk in becoming a CMO is just focus on your compliance. so that the entire business will not come to zero. Otherwise, if you maintain on the compliance, you can continue doing business for you. And in fact, do much better inspection, you will attract more CMO business.
So basically, if you're a CMO, if you're much more compliant and more honest, you will attract more people. So
yeah,
basically,
and
what's the problem?
Yeah, that's the example for a company called, let's say, Samsung. Now, Samsung is basically a CMO till now.
Yeah.
All biopharma, all sterile product people go to Samsung because it has a good CMO history. It has never faltered in compliance. It never, I mean, it did not also because it is not their product anyway. If there's a bad, they will reject it anyway. So Samsung is an example for you. It says a CMO and far better than any big pharma. Only as a contract manufacturer.
Yeah, this is something which I found fascinating. Like, why is India not attracting the biologics business? So if I look at the top line growth of Samsung Biologics or Wuxi Biologics, these guys are growing at 40-50% their top line. And the biggest Indian CMO, like at least in terms of revenue, is probably Syngene right now. And they barely grow, like they grow at 15%. So why are they not able to attract the biologics business? Is it because of the is it just because of the aseptic practices in India that the innovators don't want to give the contract to an Indian manufacturer?
I take back. The answer to this question is the MasterCard ad, and money can't buy you anything. For rest everything, there's a MasterCard. So money can set up a biosimilar plant, but how will you buy hygiene?
Okay, so it's really the aseptic hygiene practices. Okay.
And let me inform you that operators in Samsung or Wuxi are not Koreans, because Korea also is in Asia. They're all European operators. So they have anyway guaranteed hygiene habits.
Okay. And do you see any Indian company actually, it may be listed, it may not be listed, but who has these kinds of traits in them that they can actually apply, attract this kind of business?
No, there are now unlisted. See, Intas is one plant, although they got having problem in their first inspection with the FDA. But if you see Intas bio plant, and now Cadilla's bio plant, they are world-class plant now. But point is, see, if you put yourself in the shoes of Pankaj Patel or Intas chairman, where will he get people from who does not be happy having mustache and beards and haircuts regularly? So no, this is inbuilt. I mean, it takes time. I mean, culture takes a lot of time to correct itself.
So is that also the reason, like companies? I'm not sure if I'm getting it right, but maybe Newland, they like their CMO expansion is in Switzerland instead of India.
Oh, maybe their CMO. No. Newland may not be in Switzerland because Newland is an API plant. Newland is a pure play API. So
so I'm just missing the name, but I was reading about a company which is actually expanding, like they're putting up new capacity in Switzerland, and I was wondering.
That's I think must be Dishman, Daikel.
Dishman, yeah, sorry, it was Dishman, yeah, Carpachin. Is that also a reason that they want to attract that kind of a business and the compliance, like the general hygienic practices would be really good?
No. For the high value APIs, and because of some confidentiality issues, they don't want to be in India. And unfortunately, their Indian plant also is into regulatory mess in Europe. So that decision to shift, as long as it's not a sterile product, the decision to shift to outside India, any CMO activity is only based on confidentiality.
Okay. I think I covered most of the things that I wanted to talk about. What about you, Sahil?
Oh, have we? Apologies, I need to pull up the document that we were discussing yesterday. Just give me some time.
Oh, sure. By the way, thanks again for your time. It's been such a learning experience for me. It's been much better than watching all your videos on YouTube. It's been a really pleasure for me. And let me know if you have other things to do, because I understand we have gone for.
No, I'm free for you today. And, but I can tell you one thing that all these are concerning, non-concerning discussions. But I tell you that Street has not seen the potential of Indian pharma. I am telling you that you will see amazing growth in Indian pharma in coming days, only because of our good technology and the knowledge that now we have in terms of the generic business. And thankfully, and must thank to the FDA that with time when the biosimilar guidelines is turning more towards now generic, you will see a tremendous growth of Indian pharma into biosimilar space. Because every every biosimilar, I think when it was in 2003, precisely 2003, the biosimilar was a no-no because it was considered as a new drug. So you have to do a virus validation if you have an antiviral compound and this and that, and like a new molecule. So it was like budget-wise also a barrier, and time-taking gestation period. From 2018 to now, the guidelines are being diluted the way it looks like FDA now would be will just revise the generic guideline and include biosimilar in the bracket. That's also applicable to biosimilars. And this is where the gap between Lupin, Sun, Aurobindo, and Cadillas of the world and Biocon that you see now in biosimilar will keep proportionally reducing in 5 years, 10 years time, because these guys are masters of generic production. They know their generic pain point, the generic pleasure as well. Biocon has to learn the process. Biocon is mostly an invention company. It's an innovation company. So innovation is now being diluted by FDA. They said, okay, you can copy, and if you copy, we'll not consider it as a new drug. So this is where the advantage that Biocon had now is getting, the gap is getting filled between the big Indian pharma who is now getting into this space.
Yeah.
Right way and wrong way as well, because they also know how do you cross cut your corners and do generic filings. Biocon is not used to that. As of now, it's a very compliant company. It has a lot of stake in the international market. So, but unfortunately, the FDA guidelines are getting diluted. Maybe because of the pressure from the healthcare system of the United States that they need cheaper biosimilars. So that's a bonus for big Indian pharma.
Yeah, that's sorry, go on, side.
So I just wanted to ask a couple of questions related to some of the things you had mentioned in the middle. At one point, you had mentioned that the costs for biosimilar filings is going down. I think Harsh had the number 50 to 60 million in his mind. Do you have a sense for what that might be now? And the reason I'm asking this is some of the smaller or mid-cap Indian companies also claim that they are into biosimilars and that they have been working for 4 or 5 years. So as investors, we are kind of not able to verify whether they are actually doing this. And I mean, to give the concrete example, Harsh and I were discussing Shilpa Medicare and how they are mentioning that, we are investing into building up a pipeline of biosimilars. So Harsh was like, they don't have the balance sheet strength because, $40-50 million per biosimilar filing. So that number becomes crucial for us to judge whether, how much we can trust the company.
See, biosimilars, I told you that if you take from, and the Hus, whatever Hus has dished out the figure, must be for 2003 in starting biosimilars. We are not 60 million, but around 30-40 million was the cost of, if you add the cost to the time as well. If you have not made anything, facilities lying idle, and it takes 10 years to get a final approval. So that has come down drastically now. So if a typical ANDA, and this happens, in normal generic business as well. I will tell you one thing, that look at ANDAs of an oral tablet product. The total cost, or probably whatever they show in their books, if you can, by spending $1 million on one molecule, you can develop an ANDA. You can file an ANDA. But that's called an ANDA, and that's a generic drug. But it's not true. You need 10 million still for a respiratory product. But that's also generic. That's not a biosimilar. Because see, it all depends on how big and how critical is your clinical study. That's where the chances of success and failure in filing and developing an ANDA mostly rest in the clinical and bioequivalence study. Because tablet to India may be banta hai. India also makes tablets, but they are not bioequivalent to the innovator. So to prove that, you have to do a lot of clinical studies. That is where the whole cost is. As a rule of thumb, I tell you, for a generic vanilla tablets ANDA, out of 1 million, let's say, dollar employee cost, salaries, electricity bill, and everything, 40 to 50% of the cost goes in doing the bioequivalence studies. And this is where the failure and success rate is very high. If it fails, then your whole another $500,000 that you have spent for making batches, that also goes to zero. You have to do it, go to the drawing board again. And this is why I tell you that why you people should watch Lupin's pipeline, and Lupin as a capability. Now Lupin is into respiratory. You have an inhaler or a DPI. Now doing a clinical study to show that you are as good as the innovator is more tougher than doing a new drug discovery. I'll tell you why. Because see, once you take let's say, once you take a tablet, my tablet and the Pfizer's tablet, I see in the blood, it's easy. It just goes in the blood and the body digestive system does its job. In respiratory, the release of the product in the lungs has variables. The way you have inhaled, the particle size of the API, because it is going to your lungs because it has a particle size, everything. So match, and you people are just young people. Let me tell you our saying in the US ANDA business. It is called that if an innovator product is a donkey, please copy a donkey. If an innovator product is a horse, you have to copy a horse. Tomorrow, let's say I am a chairman of a company and my R&D teams comes to me and tells me, sir, I have a better profile than atorvastatin Pfizer. Sorry, I don't need you in my company. You are going to be a disaster. Because even if let's say atorvastatin tablet people take and it does come out on your shit, you have to copy the same tablet. Because for 30 long years or 25 long years when it was under patent, people were taking this medicine and getting used to it, right? So you are nobody, not even discovered this molecule, coming and telling FDA that, look, my profile is far better and is as close as the theoretical profile and blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't work that way. No brain is required in copying a generic drug, right? So since you have to copy a donkey, a horse, that is why a respiratory product copying is extremely, extremely critical. Because it not only has to copy the product, the flow, it also has to copy the medical equipment that you use to inhale. Because maybe the volunteer on which you are testing it, all volunteers may not be pumping it with the same force that you want. That is where the whole challenge is. The product is good, but it fails clinically. And that is why, people and Steve got so much excited when Lupin got the Pro Air approval. It is the announcement to the world that, look, we have cracked the respiratory clinical trial, the toughness. Okay, so now coming back to biotech, now it's not the budget that is coming reduced. That's what I'm telling you. Now the guideline is getting reduced. Like, let me give you an example. If I am a biocon in 2003 and I wish to go to FDA and say, look, I'm going to find an erythropoietin. So FDA would expect me to synthesize erythropoietin at my facility, develop it, do a clinical trial and fill it in the fill form, like pre-filled syringes or a vial or whatever it may be. Now you can buy erythropoietin from somebody else also and do your own clinical study and file the ANDA. So that's why Lupin and other companies, big pharma are doing. They're already buying the biosimilar development molecule, which are at an advanced stage in US companies, development companies or startups. They're buying at that stage and getting the clinical trial done at their cost.
Apologies, that confuses me a little bit. Since they are going to claim that they will manufacture, how are they able to buy and file it?
No, that's what I'm saying. So see, manufacturing is the presentation part, right? So you take insulin crystals and you take that crystal and fill using a machine in a vial or a pre-filled syringes. That's manufacturing. But 2003, the crystal also has to be made by you as a company. The clinical trial are done on crystals, not on the syringes. Okay? Raw material. So now with the biosimilar guideline coming down, you can still buy a insulin developed by a company in Korea or a Samsung or a US companies of the world and still use that in your facility and own that molecule.
Interesting.
It's like generic. I mean, if I am in atorvastatin tablet, I need not make atorvastatin API, right? I can buy the API from Newland or a Laurus. But this was the case in biosimilar. Now, it was not the case in 2003.
I see. So basically, you don't have to manufacture all the inputs. The inputs can be purchased from other companies.
Yes. Not only that, your inputs can be purchased. Your inputs, clinical trial also can be purchased. So if some startup in US, R&D company in US has already, like, the example of yesterday's, last week's disaster of Cipla, Avenue Therapeutics. Now there are companies who are spending their own money on clinical trial on a biomolecule. So they will sell you with the whole clinical data that you can submit to the FDA in your name. Because you have a manufacturing capability or you have good name in US as a partner.
Right. Thanks a lot. That helps a lot. Yeah. Harsh, do you have any other questions?
Uh, about your point about Pro Air and like Lupin's announcement into inhalation, just give me a second. Yeah. Point about I think the market also got super excited when Perigo recalled its product because they had a problem in their medical device, like there was clogging going on. This kind of a thing. This can also happen to a Lupin or a Cipla, right? Like the medical device shows some kind of a problem in dispensing, like the.
Yes.
So
Yes. Absolutely.
so if this
So
happens,
yeah. Respiratory product brings you two problems. A, the product itself can have a problem, or the delivery device can have a problem. So that's why it's a very risky game to play.
Yeah. And also that's why probably there are so few people like in these markets so far. I think in the generics it was Perigo, Lupin, and Cipla, which were
Sandoz was there. Sandoz has a big pipeline.
and yeah, and Sandoz, I guess. Uh, yeah, but it was quite interesting to know because Lupin's management always said that they were going to get Pro Air approval very soon. It is because of one of their suppliers that they were getting delayed, and that's what they kept on saying on their conference calls.
So they got a CRL. They had a deficiency in 2019, so they had to respond. In fact, I am sure because I also do a lot of development work. I'm sure that they would have also found this problem in the canister of problem that Perigo has found. But that's how your billions comes into play. That you choose your partner and all that, so that it doesn't give you a problem. But that always remains a concern. That medical equipment may ditch you at some point of time. And this is a very interesting part that you raised. And this is why if you see, these old people in US and all that, they have a lot of funny people in US also. They unnecessarily sue you because of that, because they thought that because of this problem, they missed their dose in night and whole night they were not sleeping. So they will sue the company. So no, these are a problem that you face in this kind of, barrier products. And the best example, and that's why Lupin also comes into picture, is the female contraceptive. Harsh, I tell you one thing, and please understand, why is the vaccine taking so much time? It has the same drug chemistry. Everybody knows that which part of the virus is responsible for this disease. How is this disease getting attacked? It either get populated. Vaccines are getting time to be developed because vaccines are like go or no go. Tomorrow, if you get a vaccine shot and somebody gets a COVID out after that, how much the company will be sued for? You tell me.
Yeah.
Right? So no, let me tell you one thing. That big pharma has a drug vaccine available for malaria. In time, it's coming now. Big pharma has a vaccine, can develop a vaccine for the HIV. Don't have, but they have a year because the vaccine thing will, remove the drug from the disease from the society. And second is that they are go or no go. And the biggest example for this molecule, why Indian companies are not doing good in one therapeutic area, is called the female contraceptive hormones. This is where Lupin has got into. See, female contraceptive hormones, as again, are go or no go. You conceive, you find out that you have a doubt that you have conceived, and you take a female contraceptive product, and on the 20th day, you then it is not working. What will you do to the company? So the companies don't get into this go. At least the Indian companies do not have the financial muscle to get into this go or no go diseases. Forget it, sir. You please be happy taking the innovator drugs. Because see the simple asbestos in the Glaxo's milk powder. How much they have been sued for? Indian companies will close down if they pay this much sue, right? So the therapeutic categories which are go or no go, or have a problem like respiratory, where old people who in the night get an asthma attack and the canister does not work, then you are at a risk of getting sued. This is a technology barrier as well as the risk barrier that you have to cross.
So I guess it can play for you, and it can also play against you. As
of now, looks like paying it to Lupin, but not sure.
Who knows? Like they have also seen so Okay, but for Lupin, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. Like they got like 6 facilities under OAI or warning letters. Like everything that could go wrong just went wrong. So and then the market lost all its confidence as well, because like they were the leaders of the last one. Like they were the fastest growing company to reach like $1 billion US revenue, and then like since 5 years they've completely like stopped there. And I think the Solosec ramp up didn't go as expected. So like the street loses. This also reminds me of another company which the street was excited about when I look in 2000 to 2008 era, which was Glenmark. And then like they tried to go really into NDA. Like they got a CRL for Rialtris, which was also a respiratory product. And now the street has completely lost confidence in also that name. If that management can actually, if this just close down the IGNOS business, which is like the NDA business, the stock price will probably double because the India business is so good. Like they have like a 60% plus
That's
chronic portfolio.
this quarter. Anyway.
Yeah, but that's about like the past couple of quarters. But even if you look at 10-year period, they have gained a lot of market share in cardiac business. So they have really grown their chronic pipeline very well. And although a lot of these are just marketing, like they just buy for some, so it's licensing arrangements, but they have also built brands. So they recently also showed VWash brand to HUL, but now the market is completely lost all kinds of confidence in them.
So there are R&D work that is not working for Glenmark. So you know that. So I hope Mr. Gil Sandana also knows that. And so that's why I'm telling you, you will see some good news from Glenmark in this Q2 phone call.
Yeah, I hope that they are able to do some stake sale in IGNOS or something. But yeah, like this doesn't seem to be this seemed to be a very innovation kind of company, and it hasn't paid off. But that was also the case with Biocon. Like in 2015, 2016. The market didn't like it. Like it was 6-7 years of biosimilar investment, and they were like, "Why are you doing this?" That was like always the question. Like, why are you spending 15% of your revenues in R&D or something? Which is also the question.
It was logical because biosimilars require that kind of spend and hope they deliver the kind of molecule that they have promised. But Glenmark was a totally different story. And Harsh, you are from IIT. I tell you one thing that for a new drug to be discovered from India, from Indian labs, we need to change the curriculum starting from IIT.
Not from the high school.
Not from high school, at least from the IIT, at least. I mean, you have a curriculum where you just wrote and vomit in the morning. That doesn't work.
Okay, so we are still, and I guess even if we get in India, I don't know how hard it is to actually then have the connect with the doctors as well, because you would need to tell the doctors to prescribe it, right? In the end.
No, but any NDA, as of this part of the life cycle of Indian big pharma, let's say anybody who gets an NDA, after the NDA gets approved, they would definitely have to partner with some big pharma for some time, because see, they still do not have the marketing muscle. And I am very hopeful, despite having all my concerns on Sun Pharma in terms of compliance. I can tell you the first NCE that will come from India will be from Sun Pharma.
Yeah, but yeah, like the last leaders of the bull market in pharma, like market has lost confidence, and right now I guess the narrative is a lot about APIs as well, which is also like very low in the value chain if you think about it. No, in there, like currently, like this pharma bull market was led by API companies. Like the market really went bullish on them, and the narrative was everything will move from China to India, and and the government was also using that.
Somebody who sold API, somebody must have bought it, right?
Yeah.
So you will see the bull market in Q2 for pharma. As simple as that.
Yeah.
You will see those API companies, except for Laurus and Newland Pharma. For all other API companies that you saw the bull run, they have been consumed by big pharma or some pharma company. So you will see, wait for Q2 results to come. You will see these bull runs getting into bull run in pharma other than the APIs.
Yeah. And it also makes sense, like FDA, like you migrate from API to formulations, like you go higher in the value chain, you don't go back. But anyway, like that's also market, like it does what it wants to do. There's a narrative which always takes something. But I don't have any more actual questions for you. If you want to have a freewheeling chat, I'm happy for that.
No, only thing is that I'm telling you, I have been telling people writing about it also, that as an investor, if you are looking into your, as a pharma, as an interest, as an investor, be very careful with companies who have injectable portfolio more than 40% of their total portfolio. You have to be very careful because the robustness with respect to somebody telling you that okay, inspection has started in this factory and you will be remaining awake at night can only happen in an Indian injectable company. So anybody, actually, even in big pharma, if the portfolio and the promised portfolio that's coming is 40% is more than injectable, then you have to be a little careful in terms of tracking the company's compliance, the promises, and all that. And let me tell you one thing: for the mid pharma that is coming up now, I'll not now like to name. If they are into sterile and they've got by chance a US FDA approval for injectable plant, please don't rely on them. They are going to face the music in coming days. Injectable is not their cup of tea.
That's like true for most, I guess, mid pharma company. Okay. But anyway, like I think
the kind of NDAs they are getting approved. You saw Kedla's approval, 3 approvals today, and the big pharma will add one small pharma in themselves every year.
Yeah, I saw you tweet about it. By the way, like it seems that how many FDFs can so whenever there's a drug which goes off patent, with time we are seeing that there are lots of people who are getting exclusivity. How much is there a limit to that? Like how many people can?
No, there's no limit. There's absolutely no limit. It's not exclusivity. Once the exclusivity goes off, then you can have 100 people also. I mean, if you see even atorvastatin, there will be 30 of them now anyway. Any off-patent molecule, and this is where we did not discuss. This is where the unique company comes into play. Is a company called Natco. I mean, if you ask me, it's an amazing company in terms of its technology abilities and what it wants to do. Believe me, Natco had a choice to copy everything that Silpa Medicare has an ANDA on, right? But they have not done it because they are in a game of high risk, high reward, and that's Para 4 filing. No Indian company has so Para 4 filing lined up than Natco in India, right? So Natco is another good company, which can be looked upon with respect to their technical ability and the kind of molecule they choose. Superlative R&D team, extremely good clinical team with respect to identifying Para 4 opportunities, and that's a company. I mean, I can tell you that my personal belief is that if there's one company out of this 4 or 5 big pharma that you have to watch in 2021 onward, that will be Natco.
Yeah, I actually bought my first Natco says like about 3 years or 2 years, whatever back. But anyway, I really like that they go for such niche opportunities, and you can really see like there are a couple of years when they really sell it and they reset their top line in a way, which is like doubling or something. And now they even went like it's very interesting for me. Like companies like PI is moving from agri to pharma, and Natco is now trying to also go into like their agri division. They are trying to grow that division. Let's see. But the management is super cool. Like they are super honest during like the investor like conference calls, and they are very upfront with what their plans are. Yeah, and they've also shown it with like their 2018 when they had like these Para 4 filing can give you a lot of money.
And there's always been a pain in the neck for the big pharma who are in oncology. So Natco keeps challenging them every 1 or 2 years anyway. So it's a good company and probably a good acquisition candidate in 2025-26 for big pharma.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. But it's really cool that they have such a good oncology and cancer thing. The Indian business has recently not done so well, but they still invest in their US pipeline.
So now they realize that they cannot be in India. We remaining in India. So they're doing it. In fact, yesterday they only they announced the plan for a big molecule launch in India. So this is what Dr. Reddy's also were doing it wrong. I mean, Dr. Reddy is such a big name that you can't be in India domestic sales as a Dr. Reddy's brand and be doing good in US. So the table has now turned by the new CEO, and I can I can tell you that Torrent, Cadila Healthcare, Alchem Laboratories will get their run for the money from Dr. Reddy's in coming days from domestic market.
Yeah, the new CEO also has this strategy to go now more into Europe, like to also sell, to try to.
Anyway, they're good, but India, they were not there at all.
They were not there at all.
They know that Dr. Reddy's is a research company. It doesn't produce any product.
Yeah, no, there, yeah. A lot of people like on this forum, like they did quite a bit of due diligence on like the new Dr. Reddy CEO. Like who I think he gave a conference in JP Morgan, healthcare conference in 2018, and that was really good. Like to know like what their plan is, and it seems that they are really now focusing on other markets as well. And this also, and then I also see like the much lower companies in the sense that are just getting into the US market. Even for them, it's very attractive. Like maybe for the big boys who already make $1 billion from US, it's not, they have to diversify. But for smaller companies which have nothing, that's also very attractive. Like they can still make decent ROEs selling in the US. Do you know of any SME companies like which are maybe not completely in the radar of like investors?
Listed or unlisted?
Uh, Listed, hopefully, like NSE had a huge SME thing in
Yeah,
2017.
many of them are listed there, but all have listed because of the why listing are done in India. They have nothing to offer in pharma.
Okay, so so we don't have any place that way. Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yes, but yes,
yeah.
there are unlisted companies like you have a Mankind or a Intas, which are doing far
Intas,
better than anybody in the world.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was reading an HDFC report and where they showed like the growth of like Mankind also in India. They have done very, very well.
Yeah.
Like they have done, yeah. So we also have to keep track of like the unlisted ones who is taking market.
Yes, but unfortunately, you just can't translate the success story of the India market into US market or a regulated market because there's always a big factor of compliance.
Yeah. If some of these big pharma just had a different India business listed, stock price would be different.
Absolutely.
Like if you could just see like the kind of valuation that Sanofi gets, because it's kind of FMCG, right? But I also remember you made a point about how branded market might also be at risk at some point, unless you are into like very life-saving therapies.
Yes.
That can also be a problem.
Yeah, because see, India branded market is being challenged by the newcomers. That Iris Life Sciences and all the companies. So they're very aggressive in marketing, and at least thankfully the doctors in India know that even if we make medicines in our Baddi factory, the medicines are not bad. Please understand, and let me assure you and your team as well who are listening to this that in terms of, crooks are anywhere in the world. It's not that only India and Bangladesh has crooks. So, please be assured of the quality of drugs that you get from any Indian big, small pharma. However, in terms of rating and quality being built in the product, you can always rate Cipla, Alchems of the world as the good company in India who really want the cost for the brand. But in terms of generic, and this what is that new government policy of the new generic companies they have a good quality. That's not a problem. But these big pharma's branded business are getting challenged with companies like Iris Life Sciences and all. They've got money, they've got a bitter muscle power for marketing. They're doing good.
Yeah. I was actually surprised to know that even like Sun Pharma, which is known for its domestic market, like especially I guess after Ranbaxy acquisition, they have been losing market share except in all the segments except their CNS, like the central nervous system. That's where they have stood ground. But in all the other chronic market segments, they have actually been losing market share over the last 5 years. And that was very interesting for me to see like the newcomers actually stealing the lunch from like the big boys.
Yeah. See, or your relatives know 300 doctors in India. You can set up a 100 crore company in 2 years. What is the big deal in 300 doctors, telephone number, 5,000 square feet of office, Sankey office in Bombay, or let's say Baroda or a gift city in Ahmedabad. You become a 100 crore company in 2 years' time. What is that? And good 25% gross margins.
Are you planning to do that at some point?
No.
Okay. I don't have any further questions as per. Do you, Sahil? Do you want to ask
No.
something?
No, not really.
Okay. So, pleasure talking to you, Harsh and Sahil.
Right.
We'll do something sometime after when the US FDA starts screwing Indian company again from January 21 onwards.
Yeah, and we keep on doing a lot of quantitative work at Valipicker. Like just you'll be surprised to know the level of due diligence people go
Sorry?
in. Like you'll be surprised to know that the level of due diligence people go in, like at this forum. So we analyze like the ANDA pipeline or the ANDA approvals for everyone. Then we try to find someone who has access to an IMS database to see which one is getting market. I'll keep on sharing with you if there are some useful insights that we can generate.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, but thanks a lot for your time. It was really cool talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Raj. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have a good day, guys.